Welcome and good morning, everyone. We just took you on a little world tour there, but that's just a preview of what we have in store for you today. Welcome to Atmosphere Live. This is our Google digital event where we're streaming live from Mountain View, California, Atlanta, Georgia, Toronto, Canada, and New York City. So let's see what the team has in store for you today. You'll hear from some stories about users, some demos, as well as Google's vision of where we see things going in the future with mapping technology. And I'm Jay Remley. I lead the Americas for Google Maps for Business, and I'll be your host here over the next 90 minutes. But we also want to hear from you, so please use the hashtags that you see on the screen. So hashtags Google Maps as well as Atmos 14. And also we'd like to hear from you on the bottom right of your screen. You'll be able to enter questions at the bottom right as well as vote on those questions, and we will take those questions at the end during our Q&A. So the last 10 to 15 minutes of our 90-minute session here will go to Q&A and answer those questions. So feel free to ask questions throughout the presentations. So with that, I'd like to I'll start out with taking you on a mapping journey and where we see things going at Google from mapping technology and a Google perspective on mapping technology. And then I'll take you down to Atlanta, where Tracee Hurley leads the geospatial practice at Cloud Sherpas. And Tracee will demo for you how businesses and how they're working with businesses to visualize their data and provide deeper business insights. After Tracee, I'll then take you up to Toronto, Canada, where Chris Wiegand, who's the CEO of Jibestream, will talk to you about how they're innovating with in the hospitality space to provide better patient services as well as innovating with indoor mapping. And then finally, we'll end in New York, where at our New York Google office, we're hosting Sten Kirkbak, who's the founder and Chief Creative Officer at FiLip, and how FiLip's leveraging location to power innovation around smartwatches with kids and loved ones. So with that, let me take you on a journey about maps, what they do and what they will become. So maps are core to how we function, whether it's in our business lives or in our consumer lives. There's probably not a day that goes by that we don't interact with a map. But telling you about today's expanding capabilities and use cases of maps is not really what I'm going to talk about with you. What I'm really going to talk to you about is how maps are going to be used tomorrow, at least from Google's perspective. So over the past 10 years, the pace of innovation just has continued to accelerate. And we don't see that pace of innovation slowing down anytime soon. And a lot of what's driving this innovation around mapping technology is the ability to combine other technologies with and interacting with the map. Things like being able to pull in APIs, integrate with GPS and satellite devices, Bluetooth technology, the ability to integrate big data, crowdsourcing data, as well as social data. Together, these ingredients are allowing apps and devices to not just remember where you are, where the user is, but also understand what's relevant to them and their surroundings. So maps are becoming much more personal, relevant, and contextual than ever before. And we've never seen the ability as far as how maps can quickly evolve in the digital world. And so just as an example, if you were to pull up a traffic app on your phone, immediately there's a map created just for you, personal to you, based on where you are, the surroundings, the traffic, accidents maybe that may be around you, and so forth. But literally you can pull up a traffic app on your mobile device and you have a personal map created instantly there just for you on the spot. So those three things, really, personalization, relevance, and context, are radically changing and expanding the ways that maps can be useful, right? And whether that's how to visualize your data more quickly and easily, the ability to maybe faster and more effectively connect with your customers, your users, your patients, or whether it's to monitor your assets, whether those assets are in your business environment or whether those assets are maybe your loved ones. But as I mentioned even more, we're heading into a brand new era of mapping, and it's really not just about the map as far as where we're going. What's really critical and what's driving this pace of innovation is it's all about the location. It's the location of data, people, and things that alert you not just where those things are or where they are not, but also where they're going. And at Google, we see location and information powering something we call the invisible map. And using the invisible map, you don't have to look for information. It's just automatically there when you need it and how you need it. So let me just take a step further and share an example with you of how the power of the invisible map will change the way we work going forward and how it might be able to help you. So we'll take a retail example. So imagine you are going into the retail store to purchase a pair of shoes. And without asking anyone, the shoes you want are already waiting for you with the product expert that you need. And a coupon, as you walk up to pay for your item, a coupon appears on your phone at the time of purchase. The power, what is powering this experience, this amazing user experience, is the invisible map. And here's how it works. So using Bluetooth beacons, the store builds an invisible wireless fence around its displays in the store, and we call this geofencing. And all day long, the intelligent fence is communicating with your mobile apps, such as your fitness app, maybe your social app, your past purchase history. And so based on this information, the store, as well as the salesperson in the store, know when you're going to arrive, they know what you're looking for, and they can provide a quick, easy customer experience and quickly get you in and out of the store and onto your next errand. And so location is becoming more of a query. And it's not just about the location of the person, but about rather about the data around them, as well as the location of things around them that are relevant to them. And it's this intelligence around the relevant objects, as well as the location of those objects, that's driving the ability to evolve to this invisible map. And so invisible maps make you basically better aware of what matters to you. It's what's personal, what's relevant, and what's contextual to you at that point in time. So it could help enable things such as understanding your sales figures, or maybe where your shipping containers are, if you're in a logistics manufacturing environment, a delivery of maybe an understanding of where your most loyal customers are at any point in time. And all of this through connected devices and without having to ask, right? So the era will be incredibly powerful, and it will be a big part of Google's future, and an area we're very excited about as we evolve from the digital map to the invisible map. And that era of the invisible map is not that far away. The invisible map is already driving innovation with Google Glass, the driverless car, and the Internet of Things, of basically driving more intelligence about the location and understanding the surroundings of a particular location and what's relevant to that particular location or item. And so the exciting part is the technology is actually already here. The technology is not that far away. It's actually available today. So whether it's leveraging and building these applications on Google's cloud infrastructure, or leveraging our comprehensive and accurate maps, as well as using our developer tools such as our APIs, these are the core building blocks that enable the next generation of location-based services. And so as we see the future, it's not just about seeing the map. It's about knowing where things are that matter and things that matter to you and to your business and to your customers. And so with this, what will you be able to do maybe more effectively going forward and be able to innovate faster going forward than maybe what we've been able to do in the previous generations of mapping technology? Things that could provide enormous possibilities, such as better ways to operate, better ways to make decisions, faster decisions across your organization, as well as more efficient ways to provide amazing user experiences to connect with your customers, your users, your employees, even your patients. But rather than tell you more about the invisible map, I wanted you also to hear from some of our partners and customers about what they're doing to innovate around the invisible map and going forward. So with that, I would like to take you down to Atlanta, Georgia, when introduced to you Tracee Hurley, who leads the geospatial practice at Cloud Sherpas. And Tracee will demo and walk us through how Cloud Sherpas is working with businesses to help them better understand and visualize their data, as well as provide deeper insights to their business. So with that, Tracee?
Perfect. Thank you, Jay. Before we got started in Atlanta here today, I believe Zach asked the room how many people used Google Map to get to this office. About 80% of people raised their hands, so that was really good. I was going to ask the same question, and I was also going to ask if anybody used maybe a paper map or compass, anything a little bit more old-fashioned, but I won't pick on you, so we'll let that go. You know, I think maps are very powerful. One of the oldest and best ways that people make sense of the world around us. The real question is, why aren't more companies using these on a regular basis in their day-to-day operations? And the answer seems to be rather simple, nothing too complex. Most people we talk to are really afraid of having to change the current way of doing things to implement these mapping technologies into their day-to-day operations. Luckily, that's really not the case. If you leave here from this conversation today, from this presentation, with one takeaway, let it be this. You can take your current operation, inject a Google-based map into that operation without ever changing any of the ways you're doing things, and to provide more, productivity and efficiency right away. So I want to walk you through a short example of how we do this and how we've done it for a few customers. This example is really going to illustrate the power of visualizing data by integrating two enterprise cloud-based solutions. We're going to be talking about Google Maps and Salesforce. This example is also going to echo some of the things that Jay said earlier, and that is that maps are the key to visualizing your data, better serving the people that work for you, and making better business decisions. Imagine, if you will, that you're a CEO of a national retailer. You've got multiple brands, you've got a distributed sales force, and you're trying to succeed in an unstable economy. Things are a little tough for you right now, as you can imagine. First off, you're facing many competitors who are dropping prices to drive business, and let's face it, everybody loves a good sale. Secondly, you've lost a number of your regional managers. This means that manager visits to stores are considerably less frequent than they used to be, and it also means that when there's a problem, there's a delay in communication with corporate. So we've got customer dissatisfaction leaking onto social media, and this is now damaging your brand and your sales. The real question is, what do we need to do about this? The good news here is that your data sits inside Salesforce. Currently, the bad news is that your sales team and your manager team is actually using spreadsheets to analyze this data, when what they really need to do is visualize it. So what I want to do now is take you into a live demo. I've got a computer here that I'll take you through and show you how we've been able to build some of this integration for our customers. So what we want to do first, we're looking at an instance of Salesforce that has Google Maps embedded. And what we want to do to start is put all of our store locations on this map. So now that we've done this, we can see all of our stores in this area. If a regional manager was to then click on one of these stores, they're provided with details about this store. Inventory details, sale details, when was the last time they visited. Essentially, this is providing a health check on the store in real time on a mobile device from wherever this regional manager is. This is just one store, though. What if we want to look at the entire region and how the health of my entire region is? I can actually click on a filter we've created here for sales reps regions, and this is going to show each region by regional manager. And we also have the ability to dig a little bit deeper and put a filter on for year-to-date sales. So not only can I see each store, I can also see the health of each store because the pins are now color-coded based on their sales. We've mentioned that losing some of these regional managers are a recent problem that the company's having. So the real concern is making sure that stores are getting visited regularly. The ones that are overperforming, that they're okay, and the ones that are underperforming are getting that extra attention by these regional traveling managers. So what we can do is actually use the Google drawing tool here and redraw these territories, maybe reassign them as needed, making sure that we can see how many stores are in each region, and that's properly aligned based on the head count that we have. Another added feature of this is the ability to utilize heat map. So if I remove my stores and I leave regions selected, but then I select our heat map option here, looks like we've frozen. Let me refresh. Remove our stores, select our regions. Now we can see a heat map. We can actually see where we have a high concentration of stores and how that compares to how our manager regions are broken out. So we can tell where there's gaps in our coverage, and we can tell where we need to assign more managers based on this heat map. So pretty useful information, something you really can't see from looking at a spreadsheet, especially for somebody who's on the go like one of these mobile regional managers. Not only does Google Maps provide all of this functionality we're just showing you now, it also provides real-time traffic information, turn-by-turn directions, and all of this can be accessed by one of these regional managers to get to their job, to get to the next store visit. So you may be asking now, how is it that I'm going to implement this? If I already have a thinning sales force, how am I going to get them to use this technology without completely changing the way they're doing things? And the real answer is, if your managers can use a map, they can read this data, and they can access it from anywhere on any device. Thank you. Back to you, Jay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tracee. And as demonstrated, there, as Tracee walked through it, a map's worth 1,000 words. And I think our brains are wired to actually pick up on visual cues and make decisions probably much faster picking up on the visual cues than maybe long rows in spreadsheets and so forth. So Tracee, thanks again for walking us through that. And also, don't forget, if you have any questions for Tracee, or as you think of questions along the way, feel free to add those questions to our Hangout. It should be down in the bottom right of your screen, and we will get to those at the end of towards the end of our session here in the Q&A. So now, with that, I would like to head up north from Atlanta to Toronto, Canada, where I would like to introduce Chris Wiegand, who is the CEO of Jibestream. And Chris is going to talk to us about how Jibestream's leveraging mapping technology to provide better patient services and innovating around indoor mapping. So with that, to Toronto, welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Jay, and hello, everyone. So we all use maps to get to where we need to go, but it only takes us so far, because it always stops at the outside of a building. At our company, we spend a lot of time thinking about how people get around the inside. What happens after you step out of your car and through the doors of a hospital or a shopping mall or into a corporate campus? So for the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you just a couple of examples that'll illustrate so much of what we do and why it was important that we partner with Google Maps. I'd like to start by asking you to think about the last time you were visiting a hospital or had an appointment there. It can be a really frustrating experience. How do you find the right building? How do you get from one office to another? These buildings are so complex that even the staff get lost sometimes. So let me tell you about our work with Toronto Sick Kids Hospital. Sick Kids is a world-renowned children's hospital located in the downtown area of Toronto. Over 50% of the people visiting there as patients are not from the area, and a lot of them are traveling from up to 100 miles away. So getting downtown can be a real daunting experience, considering the traffic and the congestion to and around the campus. Not only do they wonder about things like how to get there, they want to know where they're going to park and how they're going to get to the right building. And then once they're inside the building, how are they going to find their destination? So our solution combined with Google Maps allows them to start that experience from their desktop or literally any device, and long before they ever leave home. So now picture that you're the patient or the parent of a patient, and I'm going to show you what you'd do. To begin, you would enter your starting address, and then the name of the clinic that you're visiting at the hospital. And this is where we're really different, because instead of taking you to the mailing address of the hospital, we've made a relationship in the back end that is to the right parking lot and to the closest entrance. On the way to the hospital, you can get real-time updates on traffic and maybe even change your route if you need to. Now, as you get closer to the hospital, the map is going to change to a local view. You're going to see the hospital campus, and most importantly, the right parking lot. So you've parked your car, and now you step outside and you're walking, you're going to get directions to the closest entrance. As soon as you go through the doors, our system is going to automatically sense it, and it's going to give you an interior map. So now you're going to see things like the doctor's office that you're trying to visit, or the pharmacy, the cafe, maybe even the room of your best friend who just had her first baby. Oh, and if you need to make a quick trip across the campus to the radiology center, no problem. All you need to do is search. You'll have the directions of where you are and where you need to get to all at once. Not only are we going to show you the fastest way to get there, we're also going to show you a barrier-free route. It's paramount concern that accessibility is addressed in all these private and public buildings.
So Chris, that's great. It's obvious where this could be extremely useful, both from a healthcare perspective as well as patients interacting with our healthcare system and hospitals and so forth. So we have some members in the audience, obviously, that are working in the healthcare sector. But for those that aren't working in the healthcare sector, any thoughts, and can you share your thoughts on where you see applicable use cases for your innovation here, even outside of healthcare?
Yeah, Jay, it really applies to almost all the places that we're going to in a day. Think about sporting events, museums, hospitals, shopping malls, corporate campuses. They all have their trouble when it comes to navigating. So let's take an example, and let's suppose for this one that we're going to go to the shopping mall. And we live outside the city. We're going to take transit to get downtown. So one of the big challenges today is that you probably have to travel across 2 or 3 different transit authorities. And right now you probably have to go to their website and get the fare information, the schedule, and try to put it all together yourself. It can be a real pain. So what we've done with Google Maps and our solution is we combined it all together into one user interface. No more switching websites. Wouldn't it also be awesome if you could look for that product and all the shopping malls showed up that had that product, and you made your decision based on the cost or the current time to get there with traffic and transit delays? Perhaps you're even going to see things like where the closest bike share depots are, how many bikes are available. Book an Uber taxi and have it waiting for you when you're done. You're probably even going to get a coupon for the store that you're visiting at that mall. Now, from what you were talking about earlier, Jay, with the invisible map, what we're doing here is we're connecting all the dots and bringing all that real-time data together so we can really enhance the user experience. Now, not how we just... Oh, sorry, I just wanted to... One last point there, Jay, sorry.
Okay.
Not only have we really enhanced the user experience, but if you think about if you were the shopping mall and the value to you providing that application, it really becomes a brand extension for you. You're with them throughout their whole journey.
So Chris, maybe just a quick question for you. What happens when things change? So how do people make updates to the maps as things change or going forward?
One of the big benefits for us with working with Google Maps is that all the exterior maps, the real-time updates for points of interest and traffic and transit, that's all looked after by Google, so we don't really have to worry about it. But I think what you're driving at is, what if something changes inside? If a hallway gets closed, or the blood lab is now where physiotherapy used to be. If the map doesn't get updated, it's pretty much useless. So we have a tool that lets people, administrators, log in and make changes in real time across all the devices, so mobile, web, and kiosk, all at the same time. So I'm going to switch over to a live demo and just show you how you'd make some of those changes. So now picture that you're the IT administrator for Toronto Sick Kids, and you've logged in. We call this the dashboard. And really, we're really referring to this as the morning cup of coffee report. It's where you get everything all in one place, like what's playing on the device, what are the alerts and messages, any reporting at a high level. We've all seen how Google can help us avoid traffic jams outside, but wouldn't it be cool if we could avoid traffic jams inside too? Let me show you how we do that. So using modern technologies, location awareness tools that are tracking where people's mobile devices are, we can see where the congested hallways are. And we can even set up rules that when a certain number of people are in an area and it's congested, we can give them an alternate route, like an indoor detour. If I'm a patient in a hospital and getting to where I need to get to easier, it's probably a lot less stressful. If I'm in a shopping mall and I can get to the store more easily, well, I'm probably going to spend more time and more money at that mall. Let's take a couple other examples. You want to make some quick changes. I mentioned the hallway closing. So all you have to do is go to the close button, drag over the area, we'll call it Wing G Construction. We'll save that. Now, all in real time, everybody knows about it. Your web, your mobile, your kiosks, it's all out there. Perhaps you want to add a washroom. It's really simple. All you have to do is just drag it right onto the map, and there you go. All your patients know about it. So there might be other things you want to do as well. Make it easier for people to search. And let's just look at this 555 shop. Perhaps I want to add some keywords to that. There should always be candy at the shop. So if somebody types the word candy, or even first couple letters of that word, that's now going to show up and give them that location. We also think it's really important that you can deliver content to people based on business rules. And to do that, what we would do is we have our content under triggered messages. This means it's related to a business rule. So we've got our awareness of the sunburn a week campaign. So we've got the content here. The next thing we want to do is add the trigger. When is it going to play? I select that, and now based on that past reporting or just people that are selecting certain things, anytime someone clicks any of these here, we're going to play them that message. So it really allows you to deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. It could be time, weather, all those things. You can set up the rule to your preference. So Jay, you can see it's really easy to manage the changes, and I think that's really important for the administrators to be able to create efficiencies within the building.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great, Chris. So another question for you. So for those in the audience that might be thinking about mapping technologies for their company or their customers and users, based on your experience, what would be the one or two critical things you think they should consider?
Well, I think first and foremost, we need to recognize that the experience never starts at the front door of the building. It always starts from somewhere else, like home or the office. So we want to help manage that journey all the way, giving people the real-time information on traffic and transit delays, and getting them efficiently to the right door. Secondly, think about your business and your building. What can you do to help people once they're inside? What data do you have? Elevator status, schedules, calendars. When you aggregate all that information and you create business rules around it, you have a really good chance of improving the experience. And if it's someone at a hospital, a patient, that's great. Or it might also be somebody at the sports stadium as a fan. You're really helping get them where they need to go much more easily. So I think if leaving on a note of what I think is most important, maps are not just documents that are going to get you to the front door. They really should be something that helps you effortlessly navigate all the way through the experience, through the front doors, and all the way to your end destination. So appreciate all your time today, and please, if there's any questions, put them on the chat or drop me an email.
Okay, thank you, Chris. And it was great to obviously have you walk us through your demo there and use case in the healthcare space, but I think as you articulated, it's very easy to transition or transfer these use cases over to other verticals, right, to provide amazing user experiences, whether that's in retail, manufacturing, sporting events, and whatnot. So thanks again, Chris. Really appreciate the time and walking the team and everybody through that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Again, you bet. Thank you. And again, if you're interested and have other questions for Chris, feel free to ask those questions in our Hangout. Also vote on the questions that you see in the Hangout there that are most interesting to you, and we'll get to as many of those as we can at the end of our 90-minute session, like I said in the Q&A. So now we're going to head from Toronto down to New York City, where we are hosting at the Google office in New York City, Sten, who is the CCO and founder of FiLip. And FiLip has developed some amazing Internet of Things, if you will, with smartwatches and leveraging location-based services. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Sten and welcome the audience also there in New York City. Sten?
Hi, Jay. Thank you for that introduction. Hi, everyone here. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm Sten Kirkbak, founder and CCO of FiLip Technologies. Most important, I'm a dad. And I would like to start this by telling you a little story. about how why being a dad actually launched our company. The little boy you can see here is my son FiLip. And 4 years ago, I had this experience. I lost track of him in a shopping mall. And as a parent, you can imagine that was the worst experience I ever had. It took almost 30 minutes, and we were about to find a way to close down the shopping mall. So I took one last round outside the shopping mall, and we actually found him outside. He was looking for our car. He was calm. I was very not calm. I was freaking out. But it ended well, and the experience made me really think, because we seem so connected to everyone these days, to, like Jay mentioned, our car, our home, all our friends. But for some reason, we are really not connected to our young children, especially the really young ones, where it's not appropriate to buy them a $500 smartphone. But the only thing I would like to do when that happened was really to my phone, open the map, and just figure out where he was using the map. That was the only thing I really could think of. So for that reason, it made perfect sense for us to start building a product that could make us do exactly that. So I would like to just show you a little film that explains some of our product capabilities.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, darling.
Hey, sweetie, how's it going?
Hi, Dad.
Bye, guys. Bye. See ya.
So my son is finally getting used to that we're actually calling the company his name, FiLip. That was kind of special in the start. So I tried to think today, why is this relevant for the audience here today? And I think every one of us have some sort of valuable assets. And we have been talking a lot today about all the great services, but I would like to talk a little bit about the technology or the hardware. Because having valuable assets, everything from car or assets or vehicle or partial or a patient, we'll learn that the map is a very powerful and familiar metaphor for explaining the location service. And Google have some very powerful tool in order to make us deliver that service. So I would like to share with you really some of our key learning about developing this hardware and these services. So first of all, we had to develop the hardware ourselves because what we were looking for was really not available. Our key learning there is that building hardware is quite challenging. It takes a lot of time and it costs even more money. So I will come back to more in-depth examples. The other thing was, it was quite important for us to understand that technology itself is really not the product. And as developers, I think we often forget that because we are so focused on all the capability the technology or software can do that we often start or we often forget actually what is the key services that is relevant for our end users. Even we did a lot of mistakes there and made the product too complicated. So our lesson was really to start listening to our consumers and really focus on the key thing that is relevant for them and forget about everything else. And the last thing is really that the technology is moving so fast. It's like dog ears that goes 7-8 times as fast. So it's quite important for us to, and for everyone else, to once in a while take one step back and really get the big picture, so you're making sure that your investment is moving in the right direction, because sometimes the original idea is really no longer relevant, or you actually need to add new features to make your investment best possible. So I would like to go some more in depth and detail, and also explain how Google was very relevant in order for us to develop this. So why did we have to develop a completely new hardware? Really because the technology was not available, and we had to develop something that for us was relevant for kids. It had to be wearable. It had to handle quite a lot of wear and tear. And we also learned that we had to blend a lot of technology really into a very small form factor, being a wearable technology, in order to have really accurate location. Because we couldn't really just rely on GPS, because GPS worked very well outdoor, but we actually had to blend 3 technology: GPS, GSM or cell tower, and Wi-Fi. So all these technology and all these antenna needed to be blended into this little form factor in order for us to make really good location technology. So when we had sorted all the hardware and what we needed on the hardware, we had to connect that to a service. And lucky for us, Google had all the necessary services, so we actually could then display all those location, or use all that location data from the Wi-Fi, GPS, and GSM to get a proper location. So with the hardware and services in place, we could focus on what we think become more and more important to make a product different, and that is to focus on the software. Because the software is really what people most often interact with. So building a beautiful application, a beautiful app, become very important for us. And I think there's someone from the creative industry here as well. So that was also why for us it was important to really leverage on the service from Google and build a great front-end design. So really working with Google, it helped us with 2 things. One thing is the back-end, because it's a lot that is going on back-end with all the data, all the latitude and longitude, all the Wi-Fi hotspot, all the GSM data, etc. So what we really would like to do is really to hide from people everything they don't want to see in the back end, working with Google to optimize algorithms, just making sure that all the data comes down to our servers, calculate the location, transport and broadcast that location as quickly as possible and as accurate as possible, and then work on the front end to really develop a beautiful design and user experience. And one of the great new tools from Google there for us was actually we were capable of optimizing the map so that design of the map itself could more fit into our visual in our application, more suitable for our brand. So that way we work with Google both on the back end to optimize, but also uses their new services on the front end to create an even more beautiful user interface. So my second point was that the technology is really not the product itself, because we couldn't really just communicate to our consumers or everything going on behind the scenes, everything with the tech, because unfortunately people just don't care. Even we think it's super excited. It's really our, what do you call it, the water cooler conversation every day, talking about all the algorithms and everything going on, but unfortunately the user really couldn't care less. So we had to find some ways in order for us to be able to showcase and demonstrate this technology for our end users, mom, dad, and children, And the challenge was that they didn't have the product, because they would like to test this and demonstrate it before they actually purchase the product. So that was a real challenge. So I would like to try to do 2 demos. First of all, just very easily introduce how the product works, and then how we actually manage to demonstrate the technology without having the users to buy the product. So if we flip screens, always exciting. Super. So here is the front page of our application, our app. We really focused on some key things there to make it very intuitive for people to understand what you can do. Make a phone call, you can go into the map to see the locations and message, emergency, etc. So on the map, you can then choose to locate your children wearing the watch. So I have 4 children, 4 boys, 2 twins. They are not old enough to wear this yet. I have them here anyway. So you can either then go into and check all the children's location. Hopefully FiLip is at school. He's 8, so he's up in Westchester. That's nice. My twins, they are walking around in the city. Even better. And Oscar, I borrowed his voice, watch here today, so he's here with me today. So the point is that you can really check the location for your children wearing the watch. That is fine. Or you can go into one-on-one and get more detailed information about this specific watch. And to Jay's point earlier, it's all about this invisible fence. And we have some feature called Safe Zone. It's really geotagging. And what you can do is basically that you can create different zones around the watch, for example, around the school or around your home, meaning that the technology then automatically knows when I go into school, it, for example, shuts down the sound so it not interfere in the class. Or if you leave the zone during the day, which you really shouldn't, the parent could be alerted. So it's all really about to leverage what value can you bring to the user based on the technology, knowing where you are. Because it's not the technology that's interesting itself, it's really what can you bring of added value to the end users. So that's very easy to demonstrate when I'm standing here, but it's not really that easy to demonstrate to the end users without having the conversation to them. So what we did was actually to develop something we call the second screen experience. If you can come back to the screen, switch screens, super, was to develop a second screen experience so that the people were invited to watch a movie together with us without having the product, but actually use their smartphone to interact with that movie. So let's try to have a look.
We began by asking a group of kids the ultimate question. What would be your best day ever?
Fly on a flying dog.
Shop all day. I would like to touch the moon.
We then made the best ideas happen in a new content series called The Best Day Ever, a series of big adventures wearing FiLip. Designed as an interactive film series, viewers are invited to sync their smartphone, which becomes a live demonstration of the child and parent communicating.
Hey Riley, how you doing, sweetie?
As viewers see the smartphone app in action, they are invited to use the FiLip features for themselves, like text messaging, call, location, and safe zones. Google Maps were integrated into the content to help bring the mobile experience to life, because now parents and kids can stay in touch on any adventure.
So you can check out yourself, but what we learned was really that when people were able to use their phone, see the map, create geofence, safe zone, and check the location, they actually start to envision how this could add value to their life, and it was much more powerful to let them try that because of the familiarity with the map. So my last point today is really about how to keep up, because like I said, we had to take several steps back and just see what is going on, how can we position ourselves and the technology to really leverage on the capability. And we ended up in quite a hot space because we blended location-based services into a wearable form factor, which is quite interesting this year or right now. And it became much more relevant than we first thought, so we needed to understand and figure out how can we use this technology to even more areas. So what I found quite interesting is, if you look at age groups, you have the children, you have the parent, and potentially the elderly to the right. It's quite fascinating to see how they all can leverage on the technology and the services and the features, because the parents would just like to know where the children are, potentially be alerted when they're exiting school or something happen around that. But also imagine that the dad in that family, for example, could be a remote worker. When he's up in the air in this tower, what he really would like is to access important data, and that data know where he is, but he would like to access that without using 50% of his tools, his hands, looking at the screen, because he would like to access it on a wearable form factor for a watch, for example, using that data in his work. But he would also like to have this reassurance that if something happened to him, he could actually alert his team so they could know where he is. And to the right, where you see the hospital or the elderly, we know that elderly is a growing part of the population, and we see so many great use cases where we can use fall sensors and also location-based services to actually alert either family or caregivers or nurses if something happens. So I think it's really a lot of great opportunity to incorporate both the wearable technology but also the location-based services into a lot of different industry and also a lot of different age groups. And no matter what business you are in, I think it's all about getting started and understand where to start, because it's a ton of data you can capture by using it to basically help you make better decisions. So I wish you all the best of luck if you're entering the space to developing hardware to leverage on all the great services from Google. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sten, for sharing that. Not just your personal story. I think especially for parents in the audience, we can all definitely relate to that experience you went through in the mall. But I think also how that the technology and the user experience that you created can extend into many other use cases beyond, tracking your loved ones. I also think a very important point you made was starting with that user experience first and focusing on the user, and then saying, hey, how can we bring together hardware, software, and other technologies, right, to enable that amazing user experience. So we're getting close here to coming up on our Q&A, but I wanted to thank Sten once again. A big thank you here, and Sten, Chris, and Tracee will join me in the Q&A session here momentarily. The one thing I would like to just tie it back together here is on just how, over thousands of years, right, we all, there was the paper map, and the paper map was what we used to just understand, where things might be in the static world. But then in the last decade or so, obviously we've evolved from that paper map to the digital map, and that digital map has enabled much more dynamic and the ability to integrate other technologies and so forth into the map to make it more personal, relevant, and contextual. And now as we evolve into this next phase with the invisible map, you can see, through the various examples and demos we just heard from, how the map is still there, but it's really the map that's behind the scenes and driving the intelligence around the location. And it's the location that really matters, but also not just the location, but the things around that location that are relevant, not just relevant to that location, but relevant to, say, the individuals or the users. So anyway, we're excited from a Google perspective. Mapping is a big part of our company, and we're excited about the direction and where we see location-based services going here in the next wave that's not too far off here in the future, and we're starting to see some of these new technologies and innovation happen, as you just heard. So with that, to recap, so we started out here with a quick overview around the Google perspective. Then we went down to Atlanta to hear from Tracee and what Cloud Sherpas is doing with their customers and business users to leverage their business data and provide not just the ability to visualize, but also deeper insights. We then went up to Toronto to hear Chris and what he's doing and innovating around patient services and indoor mapping. And then finally, we just concluded with Sten talking through how the invisible map is really driving wearables, and in this case, smartwatches and many other use cases in other industries and verticals. So with that, I'd like to thank our speakers and customers once again, and we'll turn it over now and we'll start with the Q&A. So feel free to continue to ask questions, put them there on your screen, and vote for those questions that interest you the most, and then we will get to those here, time permitting. So with that, if we can queue up our speakers, and I will switch over to the questions that have come up during today's event so far. So we've got a good list of questions here. We'll try to get through as many as we can. I've got a question here for Tracee. So Tracee, if you're there we go. So the question is, from an infrastructure standpoint, what should a CIO or CTO consider when deploying data visualization tools? What are the most common use cases that you see, and what should the CIO, CTO consider in choosing these technologies?
Excellent. Thank you, Jay. I think to start, it's important to realize that while we are working with many IT departments directly, what we're working on with Google Maps is not just related to IT. We've got marketing departments using us, sales departments. Everybody's using this Google Map functionality to really make a more impactful decision-making process in their business. So when deciding what to do when you want to make a visualizing data project, I think the first thing that you need to think of is the type of data that you want to use. So what type of data are you looking at, and then where is that data coming from? So as you saw in our example, you can integrate with a number of different enterprise solutions to pull this data. Our example is Salesforce, but we can take any of the back-end solutions you might be using today and take that data and plot it on a Google map. So first thinking, where is the data? What kind of data is it? And then secondly, what is that data going to do? Is it going to be something that's facing your workforce, or is it going to be something that's customer facing? The possibilities really are endless. So coming up with a list of ideas of what you want this to do in a perfect world, and leaving it up to some of the experts to help you figure out how to get there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tracee. One other question. There was a question here that's as far as the presentation, will this presentation be available online? And the answer is yes. The presentation will be available to everyone. You can use the same link that you're using here for this event. So the presentation will be available, to everyone. So the next question I have here is for Sten. So Sten, the question is from the audience is, can you modify the area in which a child is allowed to travel? So say if they want to walk to a friend's house or you're on vacation in a new city, can you modify that safety zone?
That's a good question. We actually started by thinking we would like to allow that, but again, after testing the service, we found out that for most people that became a bit too complicated. So what resonated best for most parents was actually to be able to set up multiple zones. We have allowed 5, and just to make them circle so you can adjust the size. But we are envisioning in future releases and updates that you actually can shape how that zone should look like, so it could actually follow you from home to school. But right now we focus to make it very simple for the user and just make it a circle. 5 different zones, and you can adjust the size of that circle. But in theory it's really no problem to do so, but for us it was also about choosing a very simple solution when we first launched. Okay,
great. So another question here for you, Sten, as well. How can your solution or FiLip apply to logistics? So, you know, there's the personal mobility side, but then all the mode choice, if you will. So it's like the question's more around the time, the origination, the distance, and so forth. Is there any use case you see of where this could apply to logistics?
Well, we have had several feedback actually from different companies, and I think the key thing is to understand what sort of hardware do you need, because like I mentioned, it's not always great to use an expensive smartphone, and it's not always the relevant thing to use a GPS tracker because of all the limitations GPS's technology have. It only works outdoor. So I think you need to understand, can I use a sort of hardware in different shipment or for my workers in order to improve the general logistic around that? Because today it's just too limited, the capability the hardware have itself, and if the limitation was not on the hardware, I think most company actually can themselves envision where I can use that to help with the logistic. That's at least what we receive from inbound comments.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Sten. Let's see, I think I'll take this next question along with asking Chris if he has anything to add. So the question is, we're in the retail space and wish to utilize Google Indoor Maps. Is there any chance Google will provide routing and wayfinding for indoor maps? So this is definitely something we're seeing more and more, at least from a Google perspective, around interest, especially in large campuses, such as universities, hospitals, malls, but it's something that also we work closely with our partners. So we provide, you know, more or less the technology and the platform, but really looking to our partners, right, to help build out specific use cases for given verticals. So from a Google point of view, it's definitely something we see this wave already occurring and coming. But we work closely with our partners that use our technology but really provide that end solution. And Chris, I don't know if you have anything else to add there as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, really the map is the underlying asset, and I think what's important in an environment like a retail shop is adding the business rules and the changes that might be occurring. So if we're able to help manage those changes really quickly and easily with the system you saw today called Novo Map, it could be any underlying map, including the Google Indoor Map. And then we want to set up the business rules that really say, when do we want to show that message to the person based on their proximity to products or time of day, even weather. And I think that's where, you know, our technology really complements what Google's doing.
Yeah, it sounds good. And the only thing I'd add to that is, you know, I think it's a combination of there's of course the 2D map, but as we bring in, you know, our street view imagery as well as business view in combination with the mobile platforms we have around, you know, iOS and Android, you know, it's really between the mobile and then also bringing, you know, hey, what's that storefront look like inside the mall, and being able to bring in the, you know, the business view as well as street view to provide a better, you know, user experience to find where they're going with the indoor maps. So technology is there, it's but working with our partners, right, to build those specific solutions. Okay, so let's see here. Next question. Let's see. I'll take this one, I think. So I have a company that is a wholesale distribution company. We do not rely on third-party companies to do shipping like FedEx. We do our own deliveries. It'd be great to have a service that my sales team and my delivery guys can use. So from a Google perspective, we have what we call our Google, for Google Maps, our coordinate application, which is really focused on you know, both mobile as well as routing the most efficient way for workforce management, delivery, anything where you've got, say, an on-time delivery requirement or a delivery expectation with a customer, being able to route that in the most efficient way and get it there on time. So we have an application called Google Coordinate that actually fits in that space. Okay, so moving down to the next question here. This one's probably best for Tracee. Tracee, the question is, we'd love to be able to map all of our customers with their review and project details. Is this possible?
Thank you, Jay. Definitely, there's many different ways to look at mapping customer information, end user information. So I think you again have to decide where that data is coming from. So what format, what engine is it going to sit in? How is that going to get to the map? And then how do you want that displayed? Is this something that you want displayed in a mobile format, or is this something that you want more of a desktop application? There's definitely options for all of those. So absolutely.
Okay, great. And I think there also might have been a privacy angle to that question, and so there's definitely the ability to have more of an opt-in type process, right? And it's probably more important where there's data privacy concerns with whether it's an insurance company or healthcare and so forth. So being able to not just integrate, but also just show the data that might be relevant and or not relevant due to privacy concerns. So, okay, thanks, Tracee. So moving on, the next one here, probably for Chris. So Chris, the question is, in order to show heat map in sick kids hospital, do you have to buy the cell phone data from different providers?
No, I think today what we're relying on is various technologies like Wi-Fi and triangulation. The eye beacons and ultrasound beacons, we're able to take all of those and triangulate where people are. So generally speaking, we're not relying on any 3G networks inside the hospitals, although they could be an option as they're available.
Okay, so you're more or less using just the Wi-Fi, probably the Wi-Fi within the building?
Yeah, Cisco CMX would allow us to triangulate. There's also the eye beacons that a lot of you've heard about, and the new technologies that are ultrasound, that are actually using the microphone in your mobile phone. So they all have their pros and cons, and we take the, I guess, a site visit and the infrastructure to say what would be the best solution for that venue.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So maybe a little additional question on that. So could you talk a little bit, Chris, maybe more about how you enable accessible pathways that you talked about?
Sure. Well, like I mentioned, accessibility is really paramount, and it's not just about, if I can reach it and touch it, from a kiosk or mobile phone. People have to really understand the information, and we want to give them that information at the right time. So allow them to, get it from a point of decision rather than going all the way down a hallway and finding out that there's a barrier, like a staircase or something like that. It's not also just having a barrier-free route. It's also the visual cognitive abilities that people might have. We're working with MIT in Boston right now. They review our maps and our user interface designs, and they give us feedback to make them more accessible for various disabilities. So it's really thinking about everybody and making an inclusive design so that it's good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So actually one more for you, Chris, here. Maybe a little bit along the privacy lines as well that came up in Tracee's answer. Is it possible to have indoor maps without making those made public, maybe due to security reasons for the company?
Absolutely. I mean, we've done maps for places like the Pentagon, NATO, and other secure buildings, and not always are we going to have the maps totally visible. And maybe part of it is pre-security, but post-security, we may want to have maps that are only accessible by card access or by login and completely profile-based. So maybe the end user is seeing something different than the service personnel that's going to look for the electrical closet, and it goes on and on. So we can have different layers of maps.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. So let's see, I'll take this next question. So how does Google integrate with local government Esri GIS implementations? Yeah, we definitely see this for sure in the government sector. And we really work from a Google perspective to integrate with ArcGIS, and so we have open source connectors for ArcGIS as well as supporting content via WMS and other third-party integrations. So we have various connectors where you can leverage your existing, say on-premise or existing GIS infrastructure and then complement that with, Google services. Okay, so let's see. So the next question here for Sten. Sten, the question is, why did you need to blend the 3 communication technologies for FiLip?
The main reason for that was really to get an accurate location, because that's what's important for the parent. And we'll learn that GPS, that's the most accurate, but it works best outdoor because you need to have a clear view to the sky. So like my son, he was indoor in a shopping mall, so GPS wouldn't have worked. And GSM or cell tower is really a backup because that is the least accurate. So you end up on the closest cell tower somewhere. So in between, we learned that Wi-Fi is a brilliant technology for location because then the technology listens to all the Wi-Fi hotspots. You don't need to log into those Wi-Fi hotspots, but you know where they are. So based on those Wi-Fi hotspots, you can triangulate a quite accurate location based on that. So when you work with all those three technology, and again, to my point in the presentation, we work with Google to optimize the algorithm. We can then understand what is most accurate and what is available of the GPS, GSM, and Wi-Fi. And based on that, we can locate quite accurate if you're indoor or outdoor. So that was the key reason why we saw that just GPS would be not sufficient, and we needed to blend two additional technology to get a proper location.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sten. So this next one here is for me, so I'll take this one here. So we're a delivery company, and we use Google Business for our email, Google Apps for Business for our email, and we'd love to use Google Maps to build our trips and have them saved to our account so we can all access them, edit them, save them, so everyone is updated. Is this possible? So yes, it is possible. You can definitely create maps and then share those maps across your entire company with our Google Map Engine. It's one of the biggest use cases is where you've got a need where you've got many users and maybe you have a map, and that map also changes frequently for whatever reason. Maybe it's employee trips or your travel plans and so forth for your corporate travel, and you can create those maps and then share those very efficiently across all your company and to the respective users in your company, leveraging our Google Maps engine. So definitely, we can support that, and it's beyond just say the static map. It's dynamic, and as the map changes, any users that you share that map with see the real-time, most current map. So the next question here for me as well is when are we going to start seeing data marketplaces to sell data? So we're definitely taking steps to sharing data in a marketplace with our Maps Gallery initiative. So many of you maybe have heard, or seen or heard in the last month or so here earlier this year where we announced our Maps Gallery initiative, which is really an interactive, atlas, right, to make maps searchable. So if you've got a particular map that is relevant that you want to publish out, you can make that map, searchable even in our Google Maps Gallery. So the Maps Gallery is definitely something that supports that, and obviously seeing those maps from governments, business, nonprofits, and schools we're seeing it more and more, and the maps are being shared, created, and out in the public. And so it's you can check that out. It's just maps.google.com/gallery, and you can see the latest and what's out there in our Maps Gallery marketplace. Okay, so next question. Good questions are coming up here. Let's see. Next question is probably for Chris. So, Chris, is it possible to control who can access your indoor maps or your interior maps?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a little bit similar to the last question where making them publicly accessible or not. Based on login, or we can have various user profiles. Like I mentioned to you, may have a profile just for service people who want to see where the access points for the Wi-Fi is in the building. We may want to have it secure versions for people with different levels of access, and even having different paths through a hospital that are for restricted areas that I'm only going to access if I have the right clearance. So we can be totally granular on how we deliver the maps, mobile, web, kiosk, and then who can access them and where and when.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chris. So the next question for Sten is, so Sten, does FiLip have drop-in calling so a parent or someone can monitor the children more closely?
Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, let me see what the
Clarify.
here. So, does FiLip have drop-in calling so we can monitor our children more closely? So, maybe a way. So it's one drop-in calling, meaning at any point in time, can the parent contact the contact the child versus the child maybe dialing out.
So yeah, a couple of things on that. What we learned from parents was really that they would like to be in control, so they would like to decide who were allowed to call the child and vice versa. So we decided to have only 5 numbers that were allowed to call in to the watch, and also the child could only call out to those 5 numbers. So for a security matter, it's never a direct line established between the watch and, for example, the parents. All the communication is going through a server, so that the server is actually identifying who is allowed to call in, so you have a verification point there. So no one can just pick up a number and call and that accidentally end up to the child. So the parent is in full control. That means that the parents decide who is allowed to call, and they can call the child wherever they want. So you have a lot of potential features there. So the parent, for example, can call in to the child without the child pick up the phone, but they could just call in to listen. But all of that is feature we have decided not to implement now. But from a technology point of view, that's quite simple. But we would like to keep it very simple. But it's the parent that are controlling who is allowed to communicate, and it's all verified by a server.
Okay, interesting. Oh, very good. Thanks, Sten. And this next question's for you as well, Sten. So I think along the lines of the developing of your application software and user experience, what was the experience from your developer team? And can you share any information about how many you have working on the development of this application that you walked us through?
Compared to Google, it's probably quite a few. But, our core or our team is approximately 40 people. Most people on the engineer and the software side.
Perfect. Thank you. Here's one. This one must be coming from a swimmer or a diver or a child that likes to swim. So, the question is FiLip waterproof, and is it available outside of the U.S.?
Good question. It's water resistant, IP63, meaning that we had to develop something that could handle water, but you can't, if it was a diver, you can't go diving with it because it wouldn't handle the pressure, but it's water resistant. That was very important for parent and children. And right now it's available in the US through AT&T, so not yet available abroad.
Okay. So let's see, the next question here. What is Google's strategy for the intersection of Google Maps and the Google Cloud platform? Is Google planning on building Google Maps out to provide the same things for the Google Cloud platform that Esri provides for the Microsoft stack? So let's see, yeah, so we have our Google Cloud infrastructure, which many of you may have heard of, the App Engine, and our Maps engine is really an extension of our cloud platform. So you can think of our Google Maps engine as a platform that extends the Google infrastructure as a service platform, extends that into geospecific, geospatial specific use cases for the ability to aggregate location-based data and then efficiently and quickly be able to share that to the masses, that particular, those particular maps in your geospatial maps, share that information out to the masses on any device. So whether it's mobile, tablet, so forth. So it's really, Maps Engine is really an extension of our cloud platform, which is really just, built specifically for geospatial use cases. Okay, so the next question for Chris. So Chris, do you see indoor maps making their way to devices such as on heads-up displays?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that a real key differentiator of what we do is we always put the person in the heads-up format or direction. We've all been at the mall before and we looked at the poster map where they just moved the "you are here" around to different places and we have to kind of stand on our head to figure it out. Our maps, we always face the person forwards so that they have the right context, and when you give them directions, they can easily understand them. So I think it applies to all these heads-up devices.
Okay, great. Thanks, Chris. One more question for you here as well. So from similar to the question I asked Sten around, from a developer's perspective, what was it like working with the Google platform, and as you built out your solution, working with the Google platform and the team?
Yeah, well, for us, we've been building our own mapping software for a long time, but Google was a brand new thing for us, and it had a lot of unknowns. So one of the best decisions we made was actually contracting Cloud Sherpas, Tracee's company, and they helped us learn how to use the APIs. They're the real experts at learning how to apply what they have or what Google has to our maps. Now that we know how to do that, we've been able to come up with some really novel ideas and do it all on our own, such as switching the map from the exterior map to the interior map based on someone walking through the doors. So it's really easy to work with, and all the APIs are pretty available for us to play around with, and we can come up with some pretty neat ideas.
Great, thanks, Chris. So Tracee, you've been a little silent here. I have a question for you now. So coming over to Tracee in Atlanta. So question here from the audience is, I'm working in marketing, and what would be the best use case or an example best use of your solution?
So I think you have a number of different options as this pertains to marketing functions. Anybody that's looking to target a certain area or to find out where their business is currently being conducted and maybe gaps in that area for who they need to market to, you can take any data on maybe a campaign that you're running and targets as customers that are part of that campaign, map them, and then fill in any blanks, or maybe identify areas where you need to evaluate or readdress that campaign to be broader and to cover more people. So really the possibilities are endless, but using this tool to find out who to best market to and how to do that.
Okay, great, thanks, Tracee. And one more question for you here, Tracee, is based on your experience, what's the typical integration time for integrating Google Maps into, say, a CRM or a Salesforce.com implementation?
Certainly. So at Cloud Sherpas, we've really made it a point to build some of these solutions, specifically CRM integration and solutions that many companies are using to be repeatable. So we've built the solutions so that one company can implement this, and we can turn around and use a lot of that similar framework to do another implementation for somebody else very quickly, just with specific customizations for each customer. We also build very complex integrations as well. So the project really can vary. It really depends, again, as I mentioned before, where are you getting the data, what pieces of the project come together. So oftentimes we find that we're working with other companies like Jibestream or other companies to build pieces of the solution, and we're working to help integrate and put this together with Google. So oftentimes there are many pieces to the puzzle, but it can be something that's very quick or something that's very complex.
Very good. Thanks, Tracee. And let's see. So we're coming up on one of our last questions here. Seems to be a good one. We'll see how. Let's see. So it says, where does Google see mapping in 5 to 10 years? How will it change businesses and people? So I think as we touched on some of this, but I think to go back to what we had talked earlier in the event here is we definitely see the pace of innovation around mapping and the services around mapping continue to accelerate, and a lot of this really has to do with just the ability to integrate other technologies into the mapping platforms that provide user experiences at a pace that we've never seen before. And I think as we think back, thousands of years ago, we may have used a map on, maybe as we were, as the Spaniards were sailing over the Atlantic, right? We may have used a map, every year or every few years or every 5 years. And then we came into the digital age, where I think now we can all see over the last 5 to 10 years how we've really we use map on a daily basis. And it's really part of this is, as some of you may have heard, or one of the things we think about here at Google is the toothbrush test. And as we're developing solutions and working on platforms, we talk about, the toothbrush test, which is we want to develop things that people don't use daily, but people use multiple times per day. And we see that happening as, the mapping technology now moves from the digital map to the invisible map, and the location and the data and the relevancy of that, data and the surrounding, say, objects that are relevant and to that information, to that person, to that thing, is really what's driving this next wave. And we're excited about where we see things going and what we're doing, and we're just at the forefront of this next wave coming into these new location-based services where location's really key. The map is behind the scenes and driving a lot of it, but the location is really what matters, and the information about that location is really what matters. So location-based services is exciting. Like I said, you've seen it. We're starting to see products come out like we talked about today in this event. But just as you think of, Google Glass and the self-driving car, there's no map that's on the windshield of the self-driving car, but the entire intelligence and the underlying, logic is actually the map that's telling the car where to go, what traffic to watch out for, what object it's coming up to, what speed it's traveling at, and when it's going to get to that next object. And so, anyway, it's the location and the location-based services that we're most excited about. And obviously the invisible map, or the map becomes invisible behind the scenes in driving that next user experience. So with that, I think we're coming up on time. I would like to first thank all the participants for joining us this morning on our Google Atmosphere Live digital event. And I'd also like to thank those that were in person at our location with Tracee in Atlanta, Georgia, as well as Toronto with Chris, and then at our New York City office there with Sten. And on behalf of Google, our Google Maps team, as well as all of the audience and our participants, just want to thank you again for joining us, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And again, the presentation and the contact information will be available to you through this link here that we have for our Hangout on air that we went through this morning. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great afternoon.